President Trump picked political fights and refused to take responsibility for his rhetoric as he visited Dayton and El Paso today. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. After 4 years of spewing racist and anti-immigrant vitriol, Trump managed to tepidly read a script from a teleprompter on Monday condemning bigotry. Of course, we all know by now that when Trump reads something from a teleprompter, he doesn't actually mean it. More often than not, it's the first time he's even seeing it.
10,000 known or suspected gang members, controlled by large donors. He has worked in both houses of Congress, advising lawmakers.
Yes. Lawmakers, as in Congress should pass gun control now, and when they do, they can write it down with law marker. I have a feeling Trump doesn't even read these speeches first. You can tell because he does this thing where he reads a line and then he reacts to it in real time.
We know that our nation was founded by farmers. Our independence was won by farmers. Our continent was tamed by farmers. So true.
I mean, it's like your mom reading her fortune cookie at dinner. A faithful friend is a strong defense. So true. And yet Trump's aides and even some in the media are actually trying to pretend that this is a speech we were supposed to take seriously and that Trump actually meant what he said despite everything we know about him from his campaign, his presidency, and most of his adult life.
The accusation is that the culture he foments at his rallies leads to this kind of violence. How do you respond to that?
That is absolutely ridiculous.
Would it help if everyone were more careful with their language?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the president came forth on Monday and was very deliberate in what he wanted to say.
No, he wasn't. Trump's not deliberate in anything he does. He doesn't even stand deliberately. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's on the deck of a ship about to tilt over. He stands like Wile E. Coyote on those rocket skates. He looks like he's posing with Jack on the bow of the Titanic. Not only was he not deliberate about what he said, he didn't even get the name of one of the cities right when he, of course, said Toledo, even though the teleprompter said Texas and Ohio. Now, today, Trump visited El Paso and Dayton, where he was greeted by protesters. And earlier this week, ahead of his visit, the mayor of Dayton offered this response to Trump's mistake.
He said sometime this week. I mean, I've heard that he's coming Wednesday, but I've not gotten a call. And, you know, he might be going to Toledo. I don't know.
And honestly, maybe that's our best hope here. Trump accidentally goes to Toledo, gets lost, and spends the rest of his life as the announcer for the Mud Hens. Anderson comes into the game batting .250. So true. In fact, Trump was once again back to insulting other people on Twitter again today, going after El Paso native Beto O'Rourke for calling Trump a white nationalist and blaming him for inciting racism, which he obviously has. If you accused a normal person of being a white supremacist, they might be shocked and appalled, and they definitely want to know why you think that. Instead, Trump has responded by tweeting nasty insults.
Trump wrote this: Beto, phony name to indicate Hispanic heritage, O'Rourke, who is embarrassed by my last visit to the great state of Texas, where I trounced him, and is now even more embarrassed by polling at 1% in the Democrat primary, should respect the victims and law enforcement and be quiet.
Okay, first of all, you don't get to follow an insane screed mocking his name and his standing in the polls with respect the victims and be quiet. That's like if a librarian got up and screamed, "Everyone keep your voices down!" Second, he should be quiet. He's from El Paso, consoling mourners, standing up for his community. You, meanwhile, never shut the hell up. For example, here's Trump attacking Joe Biden later in the morning for comparing him to segregationist George Wallace.
Joe Biden says you have more in common with George Wallace than George Washington.
Well, you know, Joe is a pretty incompetent guy. I've watched his interviews. I've watched what he said and how he said it. And I wouldn't have rated him very high in the first place. But Joe Biden has truly lost his fastball, that I can tell you.
He's lost his fastball? I'm sorry, but you don't get to criticize someone else's fastball when immediately after that question you wander off, forget that your wife is standing off camera, and then just stand there awkwardly in front of the cameras while you wait for her. First of all, I love how he points to the puddle and she just walks around and like, I know there's a puddle. Second, why is his move when he gets lost to just stand completely still in front of the camera? Does he not know we can still see him? Maybe I can change color to match the background. Be green. In that same Q&A, Trump also refused to take any responsibility whatsoever for his racist anti-immigrant rhetoric and was asked about the rise of white supremacy. Now, just last month, Trump's own FBI director said the FBI had recorded about 100 domestic terrorism arrests and that many investigations involve white supremacy. But when he was asked about it, Trump made this vague comment where he lumped together what he generally called any group of hate.
I am concerned about the rise of any group of hate. I don't like it. Any group of hate, I am, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's any other kind of supremacy.
What other kind of supremacy? Like the born supremacy? Trump still refused to take responsibility for the fact that he spent his campaign and presidency constantly repeating vile, racist, dehumanizing language about immigrants and riling up his crowds with paranoid fantasies of invading caravans.
This is an invasion. I was badly criticized for using the word invasion. It's an invasion. People hate the word invasion, but that's what it is. It's an invasion of drugs and criminals and people. Mexico should step up and stop this onslaught, this invasion into our country. The Democrats want to invite caravan after caravan of illegal aliens into our country. A large group of people, they call it a caravan. Do you know how the caravan started? Does everybody know what this means? I think the Democrats had something to do with it.
What is that move? He looks like one of those guys handing out free CDs in Times Square. Check out my album. Now that's what I call racism. Anyone who's been paying any attention at all can see what Trump is doing. He's been inciting and promoting racism by using dehumanizing language about desperate migrants seeking asylum, whipping his crowds into a racist, paranoid frenzy, and yet his allies on Fox News continue to insist that the language Trump uses, language echoed by white supremacists, is not racist. Here's Fox and Friends host Brian Kilmeade trying to make that argument yesterday.
When you have over 110,000 people coming a month, over 1 million last year, and then well over 1 million this year, if you use the term as an invasion, that's not anti-Hispanic, it's a fact. If the Russians were coming through Alaska, through Canada, the president would be using the same language.
First of all, yes, it is racist. Second, no, Trump would not use the same language if it was Russians. He'd probably be out there to greet them like a limo driver at the airport. Also, let me just say, in your hypothetical scenario, if there were refugees from Russia or anywhere else fleeing poverty and violence and seeking asylum, they should be treated humanely and with compassion just like anyone else. Using a different country doesn't help your argument. It just makes you sound like even more of an asshole. It's like if your uncle called you a dick at Thanksgiving and then said, "So what? I said the same thing about your dad." And then Kilmeade kept going, also trying to defend the president's use of the word infestation, another racist trope, but he couldn't seem to get the words out of his mouth.
People want to look at the words infested, or and look at what the president's saying.
Whoa, never a good sign when you're less eloquent than teleprompter Trump. So the president and his allies don't think he has any responsibility at all for the racist language he's used against immigrants who are now the targets of white supremacist violence. Then what about guns? Are Republicans at least any more willing to tackle the gun violence epidemic in this country? Well, yesterday on Fox, Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey said he's against regulating military-style assault weapons because they are, and this is his actual reason, popular.
You know, guns that are described as assault weapons are almost invariably no more powerful than ordinary hunting rifles. They look different. You know, they're painted black and they've got features that an ordinary hunting rifle doesn't have, but they're no more lethal. And
what about magazine size?
And they're extremely popular. And so to ban an extremely popular firearm, I'm not going to support that.
You won't ban them because they're popular. You know what else is popular? Drugs. Like, all the drugs. They're all Are you in favor of making all drugs legal too? Because if you are, I would like whatever Brian Kilmeade is smoking.
Infested.
Hey, you guys, you know what's a funny word? Infested. So if we can't ban popular guns, what can we do to stop this epidemic of mass shootings that no other developed country on earth has to deal with? Fox's Sean Hannity had an idea during a segment with a Fox pundit who's a former Secret Service agent, turn every public space into a military installation.
I'd like to see the perimeter of every school in America surrounded, secured by retired police, which you are, retired Secret Service, which you are, military, and I want guys to donate 15 hours. I think we could cover every school, every hour, every day, add a metal detector, and I think we're going to have safer schools. Have one armed guard on every floor of every school, all over every mall, the perimeter and inside every hall of every mall.
That's insane. These lunatics want us to live in a police state where we're surrounded by armed guards and metal detectors because they won't give up their stupid assault weapons or hunting rifles or whatever the hell Davy Crockett over here calls them. The bottom line here is that the president refused to take responsibility for the racist, anti-immigrant vitriol he and his favorite right-wing media outlets use all the time. And on top of that, they're blocking common-sense gun safety measures we know work in other developed countries. These are simple facts, or as the president would say, they're
So true.
This has been A Closer Look.